Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golick look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Look and Wingo with you on a Tuesday morning. Glad you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Right now we have a really good match going on at the Australian Open on ESPN2. Rafa Nadal, the number one seed, is in the fifth set with Marin Cilic, and he looks like he's laboring a little bit.
Yeah, he does. I mean, if he were to go down, Joker already lost, Murray's not in it, and there's Federer,
the ageless wonder.
He's kind of hanging out.
You know, it's funny, Mike. We always talk about the athletes that are in the best shape, whether a lot of people say basketball players because all the running soccer players, boxers. You could make a very compelling argument that tennis players may be fitter than anybody else.
Could not agree more. It's ridiculous when they're doing that for 3, 4, 5 hours. Crazy.
Especially sometimes in 100-degree heat.
Yep.
And the other thing that's totally different, too, about tennis players is that, you know, every other sport, even golfers have a caddy they can lean on. And, you know, I've seen caddies help a guy win a major. You know, I've seen that play out. You are out there on your own. And the interesting thing, the guy that may be taking down Nadal here, Marin Cilic, he had a sort of a meltdown last year at the Wimbledon final against Roger Federer when he realized he had these massive blisters on his feet and he wasn't going to be able to sort of play at his best, and it all sort of seemed crashing down on him. And he broke down literally on the changeover. He was emotional and was crying and couldn't stop because you realize you're out there by yourself. Yeah. You're on this place where you have this moment. We talk about, getting to the Super Bowl, and he got to his Super Bowl, the Wimbledon final, and then he realized his body was not letting him compete, and it became too much for him mentally. Yeah. They are the most isolated athletes of anybody out there.
Yeah, they are. And the physical demands, again, not physical, we're not hitting one another, but still. The amount they're doing and the shape that they have to be in for that sport. Yeah. Because it could be a short match, depending on it could be unbelievably long. You got to be ready for both.
Yeah, when people say he's not fit as a tennis player, that means he can't run a marathon or do a triathlon, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
They are in great shape. So that's a great one. When that's over, we'll bounce over to the TV side on ESPN2. But meanwhile, lots to get into today. We'll continue the topic of Mike Vrabel's comments about the NFL has the greatest farm system in the world that they don't pay for, which would be college football, and the ramifications of that. We've also got some guests coming up to talk about the Super Bowl matchup, including super Philadelphia fan Ed Rendell, the former governor of Pennsylvania and the former mayor of Philadelphia, and he has a lot to say about the Eagles and their underdog chances. We'll get into all of that, but first let's start with what's trending, Mike. And what's trending is Jason Kidd is looking for work. And the most interesting thing here is that Jason Kidd, who was fired by the Bucks, says the Bucks' best player, Giannis Antetokounmpo, gave him the heads up that he was about to be fired.
Yeah, see, that's the one thing in today's world of social media and just how everything gets out there. The firings we hear about now are just they're the wrong way to do business. I mean, you think of how you should fire someone, that person should be the first one to find out. It shouldn't be leaked out. He shouldn't be hearing about it on Twitter or one of his players telling him. It is horrible the way it happens. It's the time we live in. I don't like that. It's a shame it is. But, Antetokounmpo basically saying, you want me to go to bat for you.
Right.
You want me to try and help save your job. And Jason Kidd was like, no, you do your thing. Enjoyed the organization. They gave me a shot here. But again, it leads to Jason Kidd, one of the great guards to play in this game. It leads to the question again of great players, all-time greats. How do they do coaching? We brought that up earlier. Larry Bird was certainly one of the great players, and he was an excellent coach.
Maybe the best example we've seen.
But he stopped because a lot of it he couldn't take the fact that the players couldn't do what he wanted them to do.
Right.
Lenny Wilkins, great player, had a ton of wins, but also had a ton of losses.
Correct.
As a coach. So where are the great players, that are great coaches? We talk about this a lot in all the different sports, and really they're far and few between. So someone mentioned Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr had a role, as a shooter.
Steve Kerr's career average was 6 points per game.
Yeah,
and he was a very good shooter,
right,
and a good complementary player on a Bulls team that won a championship. No,
not what we're talking about here.
Hall of Famer.
So you wonder when you look at when people said, "Oh, Jason Kidd to get another job," the the track record is not great for all-time greats going on and being a successful head coaches.
And the interesting thing here, what does this say about the Bucs organization, where the player finds out before the coach that he's fired? I mean, look, obviously, maybe more than any other sport, Mike, the player-coach dynamic is different in the NBA than it is in baseball, than it is clearly in the NFL, also in the NHL. I mean, the players have more power, it seems, in almost every way, shape, or form in the NBA than they do in any other sport. But if you're a guy looking into, hey, maybe free agency, we come to, well, what's going on here? How does this read out? And if Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I think he just signed a major extension, didn't he, Brett? We'll see if we can get those numbers on that. But if this is his coach that he wanted to go to bat for, and they're saying to him, no, he's gone. What does that mean long term?
Well, and these organizations need to see how they present themselves, because there's two out there. We talk about the Cavs and we talk about the Celtics going to maybe you be able to make that run. Washington, Toronto's talked about. Obviously, Houston, San Antonio, Golden State. But there are two teams that all of a sudden you're like, Milwaukee's one of them. With Jabari Parker, who hasn't played.
Chris Middleton.
Antetokounmpo. They haven't played together, those three, in the last 2 years. But the potential there, the potential in Minnesota.
Yep.
Karl Anthony Towns and Butler going there, Wiggins, and what they have potentially building there as well. And now this happens in the organization. You're right. People look at it and say, the first and foremost, will you get free agents to want to come there and build that team? Because you'd like to see some new blood in there. And these are two teams that seem
with young, good players
be laying a foundation where that can possibly happen. By
the way, real quickly, Rafa Nadal has retired in the fifth set with Marin Cilic. Hip injury. Now, Rafa, of course, made it to the finals last year, lost in that epic 5-set comeback by Roger Federer. Federer and Rafa split all four majors last year. So Rafa Nadal is out with a hip injury. And again, as we said, this really clears the way.
Yeah, no Rafa.
Roger Federer.
No Rafa. Joker already lost. Murray wasn't in this because of his hip injury.
Hip injury as well.
Boy, oh boy.
All right, so back to Giannis. He signed a 4-year, $100 million extension in 2016. He'll be a free agent in 2021. So obviously, when you give a player that kind of money, they feel like you're basically saying, hey, you're the franchise.
Yeah.
And so that's why everything seems to be going through him. That's why might be why he found out before the coach did that Jason Gibbs was about to get fired.
And as I said, those are two teams I want to see in Minnesota and Milwaukee. Yeah. Can they hang on to their guys? Throw the Pelicans in there as well.
Yep.
With Davis and Cousins
and Boogie,
hanging on to those guys as three potential teams. Do you build around what you have, or are they just going to become, parts for that team that end up going somewhere else?
So the trade deadline in the NBA, which is coming up, is going to be very interesting. And as always, the NBA offseason is really it's become maybe the most interesting offseason of any sport. Last year was absolutely bonkers with everything that went down. Continuing with what's trending, we talked about Mike Vrabel and his comments at his opening presser as the new Tennessee head coach, but a couple of coaching positions were filled yesterday, including the Giants.
Yeah, Pat Shurmur, and no shock here, is going to be the head coach of the Giants. Looks like the possibility of, Jack Del Rio?
Yep.
Maybe as defensive coordinator. Remember, Shurmur was mentioned with the Cardinals, who we'll talk about in a second. But now the Giants. What's also interesting, what did you think about this, that Matt Patricia chose Detroit? Supposedly the Giants wanted him. Reportedly, he chose Detroit over the Giants, and the Giants weren't overly ecstatic, about that choice.
Yeah.
Him saying, "Wait a minute, you're choosing Detroit over us? What's the deal?" That's been the report out there as well. But Shurmur, again, he was a head coach in Cleveland a while back. It's certainly been the offense. We see what he's done in Minnesota. So, we'll see where this one goes. They have Eli Manning. Eli's going to be the quarterback. So you look at that number 2 pick of the draft. What quarterback will they take? Cleveland looks like they're going to take a quarterback. Looks like a quarterback outside of a trade will go 1-2 again in this draft. Just a matter of which quarterbacks go 1-2 and who the Giants end up with.
On the Giants front, it sounds like if those things are true, then Shurmur is their number 2 choice.
Yeah.
Or let me put it this way, the one behind Patricia, because we don't know how many people they actually looked at.
Right.
As for Matt Patricia picking the Lions, 2 things there. Remember, football is such a relational business. Mm-hmm. It's who you're comfortable with. Obviously, Bob Quinn, the GM of the Lions, came over from the Patriots, was an assistant in the front office situation there under Belichick, and obviously knows Patricia. Patricia knows him very well. And let's be honest, they have their quarterback. They have their guy that they believe in, Matthew Stafford, that they've hitched their wagon to for a long time. And I think that makes it interesting. The Giants thing, look, I think Eli's going to be the starting quarterback this season in 2018, but they do have that second overall pick, and I'd be shocked if they didn't go after one of those quarterbacks in the draft at number 2. It's only the second time ever they've had number 2 overall in the draft. The last time they picked Lawrence Taylor.
That worked out pretty well. They'd love to get that to work out again. And then another coaching slot's filled, the Arizona Cardinals named Steve Wilks, which there were a lot of people that thought maybe Flores, the linebacker coach from New England, was going to get a shot at that. But did Arizona just not want to wait any longer as the Patriots are getting ready for yet another Super Bowl? So Wilks, who got a lengthy college resume, got into the NFL in 2006 with the Bears as a DB coach, then San Diego as a DB coach, then Carolina as a DB coach, and worked his way up to defensive coordinator there, and now the head coach in Arizona, where you talk about the Giants, their set of quarterback. You talk about the Lions, their set of quarterback, the jobs that are getting taken now. The Colts, that's going to be Andrew Luck. Tennessee, where Vrabel took over, they have a quarterback.
Marcus Mariota.
It's the Cardinals Wilks is going in, okay, got to get a quarterback, got to find that quarterback. Luckily for him, it's a heck of a quarterback offseason, this offseason coming up.
It is. Look, we could have, I know that right now most mock drafts have 4 quarterbacks, but it would not surprise me at all if a 5th one snuck into that first round.
Or does Arizona go with a veteran?
Yeah. Well, that's the other half of this. This is going to be the most prolific free agent veteran quarterback market we have ever seen in NFL history, because you're going to have so many pieces at play. Patrick Mahomes was picked by Kansas City for a reason. He's going to be their starting quarterback next year, which means a guy like Alex Smith, who, by the way, coming off the best season of his career, is going to be kicked to the curb. I mean, that's going to happen. And you could knock Alex Smith for all you want. You look at his numbers, and those numbers are not made up, okay? You look at his numbers, and you tell me if you're a team that's struggling with quarterback issues, you wouldn't take the production that Alex Smith just put out there.
I'm just saying it right now. Early one out of me, Alex Smith in Jacksonville.
Yep. And Blake, and you actually, with Blake Bortles, we know he signed that they picked up the 5th-year option, but there's a caveat.
They can be out of it before the March is the start of the
league. I think it's March 14th is the start of the league.
They have until then, to decide what they want to do in that situation. And me personally, I don't think Blake Bortles will be the quarterback at Jacksonville next year, and I think Alex Smith would fit in that system nicely. I think Tom Coughlin would love that, and could take them maybe to a little bit of a further step. We'll see.
Yeah.
But for Steve Wilks in Arizona, it's like, what direction do you go? You start over with a brand new quarterback, draft one in the first round, either start him right away or bridge with an older vet, or do you go get a proven veteran out there in this free agency that we're going to have?
And again, the numbers for Alex Smith, just for people putting it out there, okay? You can complain about him all you want. 4,000 receiving yards, or passing yards rather. Technically receiving yards on the other end, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. 26 touchdowns against only 5 interceptions, and completed 67.5% of his throws. Basically 68% complete. You're telling me if you're a team struggling with quarterback, you wouldn't take those numbers?
I would.
Absolutely. Yep. Whatever issues Alex Smith had, or the Kansas City Chiefs had in closing out games, it wasn't Alex Smith's fault.
Right.
Okay. He had 150 passing yards, I believe, in the first quarter, or 110 in the first quarter that lost to Tennessee. Travis Kelce went out. And that changed things dramatically. And the play calling was a big issue in that loss as well. So anyway, all of that was what's trending now. And what also is trending now is strife in the NBA.
Yeah.
We talked about it the first hour with the team meeting that the Cavs had, and it got to the point where suddenly Kevin Love became the focal point of everything that's gone wrong in the history of the city, blaming him for his illness, and then he had to defend his illness, and then they realized, okay, maybe it's not your illness, maybe it wasn't as bad as we thought, so we understand now. Basically, there are issues in Cleveland. You mentioned Damian Lillard going up to the folks in Portland saying, what's going on with us? We talked about the firing in Milwaukee of Jason Kidd, and Giannis Antetokounmpo found out, and that's how Jason Kidd found out. And then there's the other issue with more unrest in the NBA that we'll get to in about 30 seconds.
Yes, we will. First, a word from Grainger. Keeping your facility efficient means keeping your facility prepared. When it comes to managing changes, Grainger's got your back. Grainger provides you with the products and solutions that help keep your facility on schedule and on budget. Grainger helps you simplify how you place orders online and manage your inventory. And if you have a question, they're available to help 24/7 with their customer support. So your supplies arrive on time and keep you on schedule. Getting you what you need when you need it. That's how Grainger's got your back. Call or click Grainger.com or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You know, it's interesting what that line from Granger, they've got your back. Does anyone have anybody's back in San Antonio or Cleveland?
Or Cleveland? I mean, again, Damian Lillard met with the owner in Portland saying, hey, what direction we going here? Kemba Walker all of a sudden finding out, he's on the trade block, Charlotte's best player, and Michael Jordan having to say, well, wait, we don't want to trade him, but if we can get an all-star for him, then, maybe we would.
In other words, just know that you're expendable.
Yeah, it's exactly
basically the
right.
bottom line.
It's exactly right, yeah.
So we had Adrian Wojnarowski, who continues to drop Woj bombs, as we say.
Yes, he does.
Had the situation with Cleveland, what happened Saturday after that blowout loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Well, he reported the unrest in San Antonio yesterday involving Kawhi Leonard and how there may be a rip between Kawhi's people and the Spurs on how this injury, this quad injury, which has allowed Kawhi to only play in 9 games this season, has played out, and apparently it's frustrated to everybody. Here's Woj on that situation.
This has festered now for several months. Leonard has played only 9 games this season for the Spurs. And what's been a very complicated injury, R.C. Buford, as you mentioned, the top carry, the Spurs GM, denies that there's any issues between the two sides. But he did admit in our story today on the record that this has been an extremely frustrating process for the organization, for Kawhi Leonard, for his teammates. And this is certainly something that right now is an issue within that Spurs organization. Leonard is their franchise player. He's one of the best 3 or 4 players in all of the NBA.
Listen, let's just flat out say they go nowhere without Kawhi Leonard.
Look what happened in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals.
First and foremost, he needs to be healthy, and then you want a healthy, happy, or you'd like a healthy, happy Kawhi Leonard, because what direction is this team going, Trey? I mean, down the road. I mean, Parker comes back. He's now relegated to the bench, but he's 35 years old. Manu Ginobili is 40 years old. I mean, Paul Gasol is 37. LaMarcus Aldridge, who has been playing well in the absence of Kawhi Leonard, he's 32. Kawhi Leonard's 26. He's got a lot of career left, but this is a team that's about to make that kind of that change over, and we've always talked about them as being a reloading, not a rebuilding team. They got a lot of age on that team, and your best player is down for the count. So you wonder if this is going to be that lost year for them, and is Kawhi kind of and you never know with him because he doesn't talk.
Right.
He's the least talkative superstar in the league, I got to believe.
He and Anthony Davis have that market.
Really are. They really are. So, that's why Woj gets this information, because you're not going to hear it from Kawhi Leonard. So we don't know how this thing is going to end. But this is a team that every year you just mark them in there. They're in there. They're in there. They're in the hunt. They're in the hunt. They're in the hunt. You wonder this year, certainly without Kawhi Leonard, you just take them right out of the hunt.
Look, there's 2 words you never want to hear in terms of a situation with a player. One is indefinite in terms of an injury.
Right.
And that's where we are with Kawhi Leonard in this injury. It's an indefinite. We don't know when he's coming back. And the other word that Woj used there was festering. That festering is a code word for a lot of things that mean problems. That means there's strife. There's stuff that is boiling under the skin on one side or the other, or maybe sometimes both, that sometimes you got to lance that boil and get to the bottom of it. And those, for a team, look, they're right now sitting in the 4th slot in the West. They're only a half game behind Minnesota for the 3rd. And that's without their best player.
Right.
So with what Greg Popovich can do and has always done, when their players are right, they're as dangerous as anybody. But will this situation with Kawhi, because they had sort of managed, Mike, what the Patriots are going to have to deal with eventually in the NFL, the transition from Tom Brady to the next guy. They had actually done that very well with the idea of Kawhi taking over and being the go-to force with LaMarcus and all those other players around him. But he's the guy, and they had managed that transition from Tim Duncan being that guy to Kawhi being that guy. And then when you hear this, then you wonder, okay, how much longer can he be that guy there?
And we went through the summer of LaMarcus Aldridge asking to be traded.
Right.
It was Pop that had, kind of have dinner with him and kind of go over what was going on. And again, LaMarcus has been, done extremely well. They need them to do well when they're together on the court, which means you need to get him, Kawhi Leonard healthy, but he's having 22 points a game and, just under 9 rebounds a game is Aldridge. But again, it's an big time aging roster that eventually is going to turn over. You try and hang on and get that last bit out of it, that last run out of it. Well, I think we're about there.
We might be. And the Spurs, to your point, have had a lot of winning moments with Kawhi Leonard. They hope to have a lot more going forward. Winning moments brought to you by Lakita Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. And you know who's winning in all of this?
Who's that?
Golden State.
Yes,
they are. They are having, to quote the great Sergio Dip, the time of their life right now. Because all these potential teams that we think might be, just maybe, some way, somehow, everything breaks the right way for them. Maybe they have a shot at dethroning Golden State. Well, you have Kawhi Leonard and the issue with the Spurs, and we don't know when he's going to get back. You have massive meltdowns with the Cavs, who are now just a game away from falling to fourth place in the East. The Miami Heat's only one game behind them. And then you have the Houston Rockets, who are talking the talk right now, which is wonderful. And they should, having won the season series
2-1,
2 games to 1 over Golden State. But it's like the Warriors, like, y'all figure this out.
Yeah.
We're just going to go and, we'll just continue along our merry way. You guys decide amongst yourselves who you want to meet for us in the Western Conference Finals, and then bring somebody else from that other side, and we'll meet you then.
I kind of think it's been decided. I think the Houston Rockets are going to be that team. Now, I don't know if they can do it in a 7-game series. Still, Golden State's going to be heavily favored, but the other side, the next would be Minnesota. Can they, we again talked about how are they coming along, and will that be, they're sitting third right now. If they make themselves a nice run in the playoffs, could they be a destination spot for some of these free agents all of a sudden to say, hey, we're kind of right there, so let's take that next step. But I think it's going to be squarely with the Rockets right now on the the Western side.
I mean, it is interesting. They're coming off a loss, and they're actually 8-2 in their last 10, which is crazy for them. And yet it all just seems to be crumbling around them. You guys enjoy yourselves. You guys bicker over there. Hey, San Antonio, we get your issues straightened out.
Yeah.
We want to make sure you're in good, and then come see us, and then we'll figure it out from our end.
I'm a robot vacuum cleaner, so yeah, I got one gig. I suck up dirt, so pardon my inferiority complex about Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could they save their customers money on car insurance, but they got fast and friendly claim service too, and an award-winning mobile app. Plus access to licensed agents 24/7. Who am I kidding? I can't even do corners. Uh-oh, choking hazard. Popcorn kernels.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Golick and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Cliff's mastery knows no bounds.
Really doesn't.
Olivia Newton-John poll from 1981, I believe. Let's get physical. All right, Cliff. Appreciate that. It's going to be physical in Super Bowl Sunday. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's gotten very physical in the city of Philadelphia, as nobody celebrates more exuberantly than the Eagles fan base. And we now are delighted to be joined on Golick and Wingo by the man who might be the biggest Eagles fan in all of Philadelphia, former governor of Pennsylvania and former mayor of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Ed Rendell joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Governor, we appreciate you joining us. And speaking of taking it to a whole new level, it certainly seemed like the Eagle fans celebrated in the wide variety of fashions after taking down Minnesota in amazing fashion and going to their third Super Bowl on Sunday.
Yeah, no question about it. It was an incredible celebration, considering we haven't won the Super Bowl. An incredible celebration, and ironically, played physical by Olivia Newton-John. That's the reason I think the Eagles are going to beat the Patriots, because I think they're going to win on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. We're going to be more physical, and we're going to beat them. And I'll tell you, this team is perfect for the fans of Philadelphia, who've always felt unrespected, unloved, bashed by the media. We've been underdogs in both games. You saw all the dog masks. Those dog masks sold like crazy in Philadelphia, and we'll be underdogs. We are big underdogs again, and it's just exactly where we want it to be.
So, but before you were governor, when you were mayor, that's where I first met you. When you were the mayor in Philly, I'm going to tweet out some pictures of me and my wife, my son Mike, and Jake. We actually lit the Christmas tree one year when you were the mayor there. So, as the mayor, let's stay off the field with the fans for a moment. When you see there's the possibility of a big win or a devastating loss, and the fans can either celebrate or be bummed out in your city, what is that worry? What is the thought process of, okay, what do we need to take care of in the streets here?
Well, crowd control. We want to control the crowd and minimize any damage to private or public property. our transit authority greased all the transit poles because people were shimmying up those transit poles and throwing things. Not this year, but in past years. So this year, when they tried to climb up the poles, they slid right down. So there's always a worry because our fans are so passionate and so exuberant. But I was really happy. There was virtually no property damage and no one hurt in this celebration, which was unbelievable. I don't know if you saw any of the aerial photos. It was unbelievable. Minneapolis is about to have an invasion of Philadelphia fans. When we played in Jacksonville in 2005, guys, 25,000 Philadelphia fans went down without tickets. I got down on a Thursday night, and I saw an RV, and the guys yelled at me, Mayor, Governor, you have any tickets? And I said, gee, guys, I don't. I said, you guys don't have tickets? And they said, no. I said, how long have you been here? Since Monday. Where are you staying? We don't have a hotel room. We stay in the RV. I said, what does it smell like?
Did we just lose Ed?
Did we lose him?
Oh, you here? Oh, okay, good.
I can hear you guys.
Okay, good. We thought we lost you there for a second because that was in the middle of an epic story, and suddenly there was this large void of sound. But look, you're right. The Eagles fans are. Philadelphia sports fans are amazing. They are, because I'm not sure there's anybody more passionate. And you mentioned the idea of there weren't those people shimming up poles because the Crisco Brigade was out, making sure that wasn't going to happen. But look, the number of videos that have come out of people wearing the dog mask, the guy running down the platform and running into the pole on the subway.
Fortunately, he's okay.
Yeah, fortunately, he's okay.
Yes.
But their exuberance is great. And I'm just curious, how did your fandom begin? Because you have been, as long as I've been in this business, I've known that Ed Rendell is one of the biggest sports fans of any politician out there. So what was the natural connection for you and sports from the beginning?
Well, actually, I grew up in New York City, and even when I went to Penn, I was still a football Giants fan. My conversion happened about the time that Dick Vermeil took the team over. Dick was such a great guy, and that was, again, an underdog team that built off years and years of just horrid records for the Eagles. So that's when I sort of switched and became an Eagles fan. And then in 1998, Comcast Sportsnet called me. I was in my 6th year as mayor and said, do you want to do a post-game TV show? And I do it with the great Ray Didinger, the famous sports writer, and we've had various players sit in on the show over the last 19 years. And I got better known for the show. More people stop me and say, I love you on the show, than said anything about the fact that, I brought pre-K education to a third of the kids in Pennsylvania when none had happened before, that we got the economy moving. None of that mattered. It was the football show.
So as we get ready for this matchup, what would you, the current governor, Tom Wolf, in Pennsylvania, and Charlie Baker, the governor of Massachusetts, if you were able to give out the terms, what would be a good bet between these states?
Well, I wouldn't replicate the bet that Mitt Romney and I made in the 2005 Super Bowl. The loser had to go to the winner's town for a Sixers-Celtics game, don a Patriots or Eagles jersey, and sing the national anthem. I had to sing the national anthem in the Boston Garden, and I sing like a wounded frog. I mean, it was awful. It was awful. Fortunately, the fans in Boston were much more polite than Governor Romney would have gotten in Philadelphia.
Well, yeah. Wounded. And now all I can think of is a wounded frog singing. By the way, thanks very much. I'm going to try and make that my ringtone now on my phone.
Ed, you mentioned about the fans. Do Philly fans get a bad rap, or we've certainly seen some things out of them that would maybe say they deserve the reputation they get? What is overall the thought of the Philly fans and their intense love for their teams?
Well, they did get a bad rap all the way back to the original Santa Claus story. Our fans, there's very little violence, and you've seen it in other stadiums where people have actually been beaten to death, like in L.A. and stuff. I mean, we don't do any of that. I mean, we're passionate. We will heap abuse on visiting team fans, but the fans also have a great sense of humor. Back on a Monday Night Football game years ago, we were awful. We were in the midst of 5 or 6 years where we won no more than 4 games. And the coach, Mike McCormick, had called some of the players dogs the week before. So we were losing to Seattle like 40-0, and all of a sudden you hear this low chant. And I was in the stands, and I couldn't make it out. And then eventually the fans were chanting, Al Poe, Al Poe, Al Poe. And there were inflatable dog bones being bounced around just like beach balls. I mean, it was hysterical. Our fans have a great sense of humor, too, about this. But we're used to disappointment. We're used to losing. But this team of underdogs, this team that never quits, this team that was counted out when Carson Wentz went down, this team blends in perfectly with the image of the city. And I think they're going to do it.
Former governor of Pennsylvania, Ed Rendell, former mayor of Philadelphia, Ed Rendell, with us as well. Okay, you mentioned Carson Wentz down. Before we let you go, do you think that we can see another game close to what he did in the NFC Championship game on Super Bowl Sunday from Nick Foles? I mean, he was lights out, Ed.
Yeah, he was. And people forget Nick Foles had some bad years, but he also had one of the greatest years in NFL history, 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He's a good, competent quarterback. He doesn't have the escapability of Carson. He doesn't have the ability to pick up first downs by running like Carson does. But if the Eagles protect him, and I think they will, I don't think you'll see the havoc that the New England line caused at times against Bortles. If the Eagles protect him, he's a very accurate passer. And can he do it again? I'm not sure he can do what he did on Sunday. That was a game for the ages, for playoff games. But I think he'll do just fine, and I think we'll score enough points to win again because I think Tom Brady is going to have a very difficult afternoon with our pass rush. And I think it's going to be a physical game, and the Eagles will come out on top both times.
Well, Fletcher Cox would agree with you, by the way.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
He would. Listen, I don't know, do you prefer former mayor or governor? Do you have a preference as title?
Governor would be
governor because
right,
it's more of the state?
Well, you're supposed to say former governor, but in Philadelphia, it's all mayor.
There you go.
There you go. Well, as the former mayor of the Super Bowl-bound Philadelphia Eagles, Ed Rendell, thanks for being with us and sharing your fandom with us on Golic and Wingo this morning.
Thanks, guys. Have a great time. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Ed Rendell. I mean, stories about him are legendary.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
Listen, I remember, again, meeting with my wife tweeted the picture out. I
that
retweeted
sweater, by
it.
the way, is just fantastic.
Yeah, the sweater. I was there, and my son Mike, who's helping pull the power switch to the tree. Jake was there, and Chris was there. Sydney wasn't born yet. This was in 92. Chris was in 92. And there's Mayor Rendell. He's such a sport. He is unbelievable sports guy with great knowledge.
Now, you know I love you, right?
Yeah.
And our friendship goes back
Yes,
almost 2 decades.
Yep.
How were you the Eagle on that team that was picked to throw the switch for the Christmas tree?
Oh, now you're just being mean, aren't you?
I'm just curious. I'm just going down the natural thought process.
Maybe I'm the one that said yes. Could be. Wherever I was on that list, maybe I was the first one to say yes.
I'm just jealous. No one's ever asked me to do it.
Well,
so
you know what?
My
kids, I mean, again, this is 92, so Mike is 3-4 years old. Jake is like 3. They were at a great age, to look at this big Christmas tree getting lit up. It was a cool moment, cool experience. Really
the look on everybody's faces there is great.
Yeah,
but again,
it was fun.
I was all about the sweater.
Yeah,
I was all about the sweater, and it was awesome.
Looked like I found an air hose in that
Well,
picture,
the good news is you're trending in the right direction.
Yes, I am. Yes,
That's
I am.
the only thing that matters, Mike.
Yep, that's exactly
you are trending
right.
in the right direction. Coming up, we have actually found something that Giants fans could root for on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm not sure anybody else should, but Giants fans could. All right, we continue on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News as Caroline Wozniacki is taking on Carla Suarez Navarro in the Australian Open. When that match is over, we'll bounce back to ESPN2 on the TV side. But this is the build-up now. We're getting ready. The hype is starting to begin for the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know the participants, and now we're in that lull week. We'll have the Pro Bowl to distract us for a little bit, the Skills Challenge on Thursday, which is going to be fun, then the game on Sunday. But we're all gearing towards this, the biggest, most watched sporting event of the year every year.
Yes.
And if you're a Giants fan, this particular Super Bowl is very painful because Giants and Eagles, bitter rivals, NFC East, and then you got the Patriots. The Giants have taken them down, the only team to do that
they have.
in the Super Bowl, but they don't like seeing the Patriots there. So the idea out there is there something that Giants fans can cling to that would make them feel better about Super Bowl Sunday? And apparently, Mike, in some strange, bizarre way, the possible death of all of us is something that Giants fans are maybe thinking about would be a good thing for them.
Yeah, we can look forward to the potential of this asteroid hitting Earth instead of either Philadelphia or New England winning a Super Bowl, huh? Wow.
Yeah, and this asteroid is huge, apparently. And the size of it's 202 AJ129 has been classified as potentially hazardous by NASA. It's a good thing the government shutdown is over then if this thing's hurtling towards Earth.
How about that? It's going to fly past us at 67,000 miles per hour unless it hits us.
How close do they think it's going to come?
The asteroid, the size of it is around 0.7 miles long.
Okay. Making it longer than the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Which
I'm sure everybody out there is going, longer than the Burj.
I'm trying to figure out what that comparison is, but let's just say it's something that's rather substantially large in Dubai.
Set to pass by our planet on the 4th of February at a distance of around 2.6 million miles away, which is relatively close in space terms.
Which makes you understand just how big space is. It's going to miss us by 2.6 miles, but we should be concerned.
Yeah, space is one of those things that I love, but once you start talking about it too much, when Neil deGrasse, Tyson, starts talking about that stuff, I start to lose my mind a little bit.
By the way, thanks to Stanzik for finally doing something worthy. The Burj Khalifa is the tallest structure in the world.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Beardo, as he's known around these parts. We appreciate that.
So what would happen if it hit us? If there was an impact? Scientists warned that the very severe global impact would last several years, causing the world to become a much darker, colder, and drier place if it were to hit us. Which only just, again, we need Bruce Willis and the Armageddon Boys.
And you know what?
Right?
I owe you an apology.
Yes, you do.
I owe that movie an apology.
Yes, you do.
You were talking about your love for Armageddon earlier, and I thought it was maybe a little overdone.
You were ripping it.
I did, although I do watch it every once in a while when it comes on.
I watch it every time I pass it. If it's on, I stop and I watch it. My wife leaves the room.
And then I said, well, it's not like it was nominated for any Oscars or anything.
Nominated for 4
and then it was.
Academy Awards. Okay.
And what were those Academy Awards?
Best Original Song.
I don't want to. Okay, that song. That's
Best Sound.
Okay.
Best Sound Effects Editing.
Okay.
Best Visual Effects.
Did it win any?
No.
Okay. But you're right,
nominated.
Though. You're right.
Come on.
I shorted it 4 noms.
Are you?
I did.
I think
did that.
I think Neil deGrasse Tyson said this movie broke just about every space law there was. Because I think he was on with Dan Le Batard and Stu Gotts, and I believe it was, and they were asking which movies were kind of giving you a good indication of what space, whatever, would be like, travel and all that.
And that was the actual opposite of one?
He basically said that one broke about every rule that you could break.
What was the other one that came out a few years ago with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock?
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of that movie? Stanzik, help me out here. The name of that movie with Brett, get on it.
Horrible.
It wasn't Interstellar. What was it called? What? It was the Sandra Bullock movie with George Clooney where George Clooney died and Sandra was left alone in space. Gravity. And she used the fire extinguisher to maneuver through space. I was like, and all the physicists were like, okay. Let's pull the ripcord on that idea pretty quick.
That was a tough one to watch.
That also happened in WALL-E, by the way, and it was great.
Yeah, but that's animated, a little different. This was life or death.
Brett, did you just go a WALL-E reference? Nice job out of you.
Look, man, WALL-E is a perfect movie.
Okay, we're not discussing WALL-E. You brought WALL-E into the discussion here. But the gravity one, I heard a lot of people say that could never happen. That could never happen.
So the bottom line is the comparative to whoever Bruce Willis is in the real world today, is NASA getting them and his crew together to go up into space and blow this thing up?
Or how about, instead
of get to 800 feet.
Instead of treating drillers to be astronauts, why don't you just treat astronauts to be drillers?
No.
And there goes the whole premise of Armageddon.
That's exactly right. Never would have had the movie.
All right. By the way, we wouldn't have a show today if it weren't for our next guest. Woj bombs left and right. Adrian Wojnarowski joins us to talk about why is everybody not getting along in the NBA? Woj, what's happening?
I'm a robot vacuum cleaner, so I got 1 gig. I suck up dirt. So pardon my inferiority complex about Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could they save their customers money on car insurance, but they got fast and friendly claim service too. And an award-winning mobile app. Plus access to licensed agents 24/7. Who am I kidding? I can't even do corners. Uh-oh, choking hazard.
Popcorn kernels.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.